This historic house was built in the 1850s. We're going to remove this section of roofing down to the bare wood. Right here, it's a hip roof section with built-in troughs. To our surprise, when we started tearing into it, it looked like a pretty good roof. There was over an inch and a half of roofing in here. You could understand why people keep re-roofing and re-roofing over because they're intimidated by tearing it down. It had a tin roof, a Homosoap buffer, an asphalt shingle, and finally a torch down modified roof over it. Because of the wide gaps in the barn board, we're going to be transitioning or resurfacing the roof with 1/4 inch plywood. You have to re-secure the original decking to make sure it's solid. Because of the multiple layers, I like to run a circular saw in a grid pattern to get down to the tin. It makes a pretty reasonable section to cut through. I take my shovel, my tear-off shovel, get up under the roofing, lift it up, work my way up, pluck up a big section, throw it in the dump trailer. Right here is the transition. We cut it on the hip. We have the self-adhered base on there. It's going to get self-adhered cap sheet, so, or peel and stick, whatever you want to call it. Like I said, there's an inch and a half of material that has to come up. Instead of tearing it up and making a big mess, I like to get all the way to the bottom, pluck up as many nails as I can, re-secure the barn board with roof nails or framing nails, and then when you skin a deck, you don't have to worry about it. It's 1 inch thick barn board. Everything's good to nail into. This product could be very user friendly, but you got to work it in the right temperature. This time of the year, it's getting hot. It's very difficult to work with. With enough time and practice, you could get good. Be careful. Work with a second person. Set your roll. Make sure it's fine. Then peel the plastic out. It's very similar to ice and water shield. It just has a couple extra steps. After the holiday weekend, we came back Tuesday to find us 2 ponding areas. While ponding a 1/4 inch or less, a 1/4 inch or less isn't a big deal. Even a 1/2 inch or less. But when you get into a 1/2 inch or more, it could be a problem. We found a 1/4 to 3/4 1 inch ponding area. So what we ended up doing to displace the water is we took our measurements, we ran 4 inch, 8 inch, 12 inch, and 14 inch strips to displace the water and help it go to the drain. Here's the mansard wall, or the mansard roof. The material, I prefer to go up the wall a minimum of 10 to 12 inches because we are in the Northeast. We do get a lot of snow. Slate's heavy. The more slate you break, the more slate you got to carry back up. So I like to remove, the minimum 2 courses of slate going up the roof line. Sometimes it's difficult. These are old brittle slate and they could crack. It happens. But you definitely want to be careful with it. Right here is an example of the cap or final sheet. You can see that black perimeter around it. That's the overlap edge or field edge. On a hip roof, you could either go over the hip a few inches and cap it off, but this product doesn't like to stick to the granule. It only likes to stick to the black or that edge. So that's why what you'll see is the product going over the hip, and every place that it comes in contact is with one of those adhesive edges. That's to help ensure it from lifting in high winds and stuff like that. It does stick very well to the base sheet, but the black field edge and end seam is awesome. Once it sticks to that, it's golden. You have to be careful. There's plastic that covers and protects that. When you lift it up to peel back your plastic on the bottom of the sheet, you also have to peel back the edge seam, the edge plastic and field plastic. Otherwise, it'll stick to it. It'll stick to itself, to the backing. Like I said, you just have to be very careful. If you're familiar with ice and water shield, it's very similar. Um, that being said, you also have to roller the seams. They recommend a 100-pound roller. I don't know if that's necessary. I've used a 100-pound roller on it. I felt it didn't really do any better or worse. Here's a better example of what I mean by the edge seams. We started on the left. We worked from the gutter, from the outlet I'm standing at. We worked down, across to the right, and then back, so that all the seams are overlapped properly. Then we did the same procedure around the top. Up against the wall, I don't want end seams transitioning into the wall. Every seam transitioning into the wall is a chance for problems. So I didn't want any problems. So we started a roll out of the gutter and ran a piece up. So I hope this helps and encourages you. Might be a good shed project. Have